Hello. Excuse me, and welcome back to the Awakening Philosophy podcast. My name is Jed, and we have done we've thumbs down for that introduction, says the computer. We have been bringing together everything that we've been learning in this dialogue so far. Perhaps one of the greatest dialogues ever had between Socrates and Jesus in heaven. We have recognized that in completing the reading of this text, we have to do some work ourselves to put together a map of how humans respond negatively to new understanding, new truth, new insight, and how we can understand why human beings respond negatively. The name of that response is interpretation, where we reject something of the new understanding to introduce our old beliefs. What are the different kinds of interpretation? What are the different levels? We need to recognize that so that we can recognize when we do that as we are learning. We want to develop our understanding. We want to develop into higher states of consciousness and being, but we have to recognize our old beliefs will counterattack or fight back, causing us to reject the new in favor of our old beliefs, but that happens within a scale. Completely rejecting, offering our own beliefs, taking a piece of the new, trying to keep the new and old together, until finally accepting the new and letting go of our old false beliefs. Now we have to recognize this along with the stages of hierarchical development we go through as we learn, as we progress. Now, what we've seen is that very block to understanding and insight manifest within Jesus as Socrates uses the art of the dialectic, of course, the use of all of these things we just mentioned, the use of the map, the use of the understanding of understanding in dialogue to benefit. So it's an art. It is also an art because there is an ideal. It's not a personal opinion or belief. The structure of reality, the logos, follows this dialectical pattern. What we read in the book, Socrates called the dialectic the power of the logos. It's how we use the logos. And because we use it to benefit the subject, it's an art. So as Socrates does that, uses the dialectic to benefit Jesus, he has to recognize what stage he's at. He's also anticipated the likely counterattacks or interpretation that will come when he introduces a higher level beyond what Jesus thinks is most real. What we did last time was recognize the tells. We're calling the free, open, curious, love of understanding state of mind that we want to be in, state A, where we can learn and develop and progress. We're calling our blocked state, state B. Thumbs up. So we looked at sort of tells that someone might be in that state of mind. Then by examining how Jesus responded negatively, we did an understanding of how that negative B, blocked state of mind, functions in conversation. We saw that we could talk about what it does do and what it opposes. Generally speaking, it opposes the dialectic. All of the aspects of dialectic, reason, understanding, conclusions, being led by someone with the art, remembering your conclusions, carrying them with you to the next step, all of these aspects within the dialectic are rejected by Jesus and by people in a blocked state. Even the methodology itself. In fact, that's one of the two charges brought against Socrates. One of the charges was he has a different understanding of the gods than the idiots in charge. Another one is he has a strange method where he makes the weaker arguments seem stronger. They're opposing reasoning. They're opposing the dialectic. Now, we saw Jesus do that. The alternative, he takes charge, even though he's lesser. He doesn't have the art. He shouldn't be in charge. He uses his beliefs as facts. He doesn't get agreement at every step. Gish gallop or speech making, monologuing. So he can build a series of false steps to a false conclusion. The conclusion comes from him and not the other person through a question. So there's no mutuality or togetherness. A reframing of the argument in a way that isn't following the logos, isn't following the patterns and steps of reasoning to truth and insight. It's justifying the beliefs and way of being he already carries. Debate bros.
Debate weirdo.
Debate weirdos. Now, we talked about how as the dialectic is, let me sneeze. I sneezed.
Do a poggers.
Okay. Now, as what we explore with the dialectic is true, we can nail down these steps of the dialectic, and they should be able to be used whoever you talk to. Always. They're always true. You might want to tailor them in a specific way in response to who you're talking to, but generally speaking, these steps are repeatable. Anyone who has reached Jesus' stage, you should be able to have this dialectic with to benefit them. No, thumbs up. There we go. Or anyone with this kind of problem, you should be able to recognize and respond in this kind of a way, because it's truth. Now, because it's truth about reality that we talk about with the dialectic, any species, any period of history. I've got an eyelash in my eye that's been bugging me for like a week. So anyone in any period of history, any period of time, any planet, any reincarnation, any dimension, you can take this understanding with you, these steps of this dialectic that will lead to this conclusion with you, to benefit yourself or anyone you're talking to, wherever you find yourself or them. So it's a kind of learning and nurture we can engage in that must be related to our purpose as human beings, because we know we're here for a certain period of time before that's one of the things we explore in philosophy. What is the consequence of our life on our next incarnation? So it's the kind of learning and nurture we are here to do, is nailing down the steps of this argument that we've seen Socrates take Jesus through. So we've taken these, two more pieces to the puzzle. We've got the state of mind, indications that someone might be in their negative state of mind, a B state. We've seen how it functions, the divisions in the functions, what it rejects and what it does, rejecting the dialectic, understanding, questions and answers, truth seeking, and that's what it rejects. And what it does do, follows beliefs, no questions, speech making, seeking conclusions you already carry. So the demonstration, the state of mind, the divisions, how it manifests, and the inevitable conclusion of this B state, division and conflict. All it will ever do is lead to conflict and division. So we can understand in the as above, so below, by the way, Socrates gave us that clue earlier, the microcosm of this conversation, the above, also plays out within the below, within our physical world. So the conflict and division we see playing out on our world, the wars, the bombs, the inequality, the capitalism, the Epstein class, allowing of the Epstein class, religious oppression, conservatism, all of these problems we face as a species are nothing other than these 4 steps of our B state of mind, or the inevitable conclusion of human functioning in opposition to the dialectic and logos, because human beings carry false beliefs that seek to counterattack through interpretation. It's not just a matter of learning what's new, you have to address the old as well. Or as the Oracle says,
no, you're not. Imagine people changing. Where's the joy? Where's the problem is that you can't reason someone out of a position that they didn't reason themselves into.
Can't reason themselves.
The problem is that you can't reason someone out of a position that they didn't reason themselves into.
They didn't reason themselves into that position. Therefore, reasoning alone isn't sufficient to getting somebody out of that position. Therefore, we have to also use this map of interpretation to trace it back. Its conclusion is a problem, division, conflict within the conversation, within your relationships, within your life, within society, within the human species. We trace it back from its conclusion to its... Let's look at it on the board, why not? Seeing as we've written it out. Here we are. Now, what are we using to understand the nature of human problems? We're using the dialectic structure. Why? Because we learnt that that is what we're here for many, many, many times throughout this text, because this text is a goddamn banger.
That one cute.
Like, it's cute.
All checks out.
All checks out.
I would scoop the moon in a cup for you.
And we would scoop the moon in a cup for the dialect. So, it functions demonstration as a state of mind. We saw within this conversation tells that, in poker they call them tells. Excuse me, clues that might indicate that you're bluffing. Putting it off. Oh, I'll have to think about that later. Right? And by the way, because this is the dialectic and logos, or the paradigm, the map of reality, and because of the principle that we've been exploring as above, so below, you can use any societal example to see this play out. So for example, it might be difficult to see when you do it. Of course, that's the most important thing, to see when you block your own development, so you can go about doing your business here, doing your purpose, removing that which blocks your learning, freeing yourself to go through that learning. But you can also see it in a interview with a politician. Everyone knows politicians lie all the time. That's pretty much their job, to lie to the people, to make the bad things they do appear good or tolerable until we wake up to the need for truth. So it's very easy to see with politicians. Except for, of course, there are a few rare exceptions who are doing their best to benefit. Those people, we will try our best to find those people and introduce them to what we've been reading and what we've been doing the last 160 episodes on this channel. To make it into an art. To take your good intentions or your innate love of understanding and perfect it. Become qualified. Because it's not just a matter of having good intentions and a love of learning to be a doctor. You have to actually nail down the understanding, perfect the art to become qualified. We want to demand the same of our politicians, or anyone in a leadership position, excuse me. So we would do our best to encourage those people to get into what we've been doing, and we have fun anyway, so it's a win-win. And then I press the win-win button.
A win-win-win-win-win.
It's a win, 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 it's
a win. So, you can use as an example those kinds of things. Have you ever seen a politician be asked a question and they say, well, we'll have to do a committee and then we'll have to review it later, putting it off? They're lying. They're in their state of mind that functions to defend their personal beliefs that will only cause division and conflict. Jumping ahead, instead of answering the question, well, that would be this, and then that. Hang on a second, we're supposed to follow the steps of reasoning together, guided by the artist, by the doctor, by the dialectician. Jumping ahead, telling a story about yourself. Instead of answering the question, say, well, no, let me tell you about my image of myself. Well, I'm the sort of person, blah, 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 blah. So that's the state of mind. Now notice, it's we can understand why telling a story about yourself might be a tell, because Jesus offered us a clue. Hey, by the way, if the dialectic is following the logos, then the reason we feel compelled to defend or push our own personal beliefs is the pathologos, which is a fundamental false belief about reality and the self. So when you start talking about yourself, you're not in the moment. You're going into your, some people call it ego, but we say pathologos. You're talking about what you think about yourself rather than doing it. Are you taking APEC money? They asked the politician. Well, I'm the sort of person who always stands up for what I believe in. Has they answered the question? No. Well, hang on a second, you haven't asked the question. How dare you challenge me and my principles? I'm a good person, and I'm from a good religion, and I'm from a good family, and I'm this person. Talking about themselves is a tell. Hey, why not talk about what we're doing? Why not follow the logos? Same thing applies for music, by the way. When I play music, I find it much more interesting to talk about what's happening, the music. What did you find beautiful about the harmony or beauty of the music? What thoughts come up about music? Rather than, how long you've been playing music? Tell me about you. What's your job? Blah, blah, blah. Ugh, gross. Those people are gross. Or rather, the feeling of that conversation is gross. So, state of mind. We talked about the divisions. Now, we can tidy this up, of course. In general, it's a rejection of everything related to the dialectic, rejecting the reasoning, rejecting the definitions we've already had, rejecting the conclusions we've already come to, failing to take the conclusions and building upon them to the next step, failing to answer questions. So there's much more we could add to this. But we get the principle. Jesus had done a bunch of these things when he was triggered, as we've been reading. And appealing instead to the opposite. Beliefs instead of reasoning. Clan identity. This is who I am. Again, it's self-image stuff. Us versus them. Talking about the other person, misrepresenting the other person. Well, you probably think this. Talking for the other person instead of questions and answers. So if we found question and answers within the dialectic, we could find talking for the other person as the opposite way of functioning of someone when they're blocked in a conversation. And ultimately, truth seeking, we should also put over here. truth seeking, compared to trying to find a way of justifying the already held beliefs and ways of being. So you can nail this down. Practice the dialectic. Now, this is division. What are you not doing and what are you doing? This reflects reasoning itself. So another way of using the dialectic is to explore an idea. So this shows that we are, as human beings, exploring or meditating or contemplating on an idea in conversation. Why? Because the dialectic is the spiritual method. It's a kind of contemplation. The definition is the things that are the aspects of pure mind. What we've realized is true theology, the gods, the eidos in Greek, not forms. This word is mistranslated in modern academia as forms, which is why we read the Balboa translation. We don't have this interpretation from people who are blocked. Speaking of blocked. So these eidos are the gods, a personification of these aspects. And of course, one use of the dialectic is to explore mind. So there's a physical world. So if we have whole and part, or same and different, or self and other, mind is the union of both. That's the second hypothesis, penultimate spiritual experience. One of two. So we do that by using the third hypothesis, the dialectic, to explore the aspects of the second. Beauty, justice, truth, goodness, excellence, reality, etc., etc. The gods. Which is a method because it's a kind of contemplation. Now there's a second use of the dialectic that Socrates is introducing now to take someone like Jesus, who's had a glimpse of that, into the first, the ultimate spiritual state, or the self, the whole beyond parts. So most of the time, as we read, we get clues or we get little bits and pieces of information about beauty or justice. And we want to arrange them. So if a text is about justice or beauty, let's say beauty, because we might be going into the symposium next. Which of these keywords talk about the definition, beauty itself in relation to itself? Which of these words are defining beauty? Beauty, I don't know, exists, eternal, etc., etc. What from what we're reading describe how it functions? It rolls on. We've defined that self, that subject, and now that subject rolls on. Now that we've defined it, how does it function or demonstrate to another? How does beauty relate to justice? How does beauty relate to reality? How does beauty relate to the soul of a philosopher? You can pick whatever one you want to do as the other. Functions. Division. How does that function relate to other things? How does a soul affected by beauty relate to your partner? Relate to your reading? How does the soul of a philosopher relate to your friends? As a result of that, how do those affected relate back to beauty? Now, that's how we would use it to explore an idea, but we can also use the dialectic to lead people through a conversation. We can give a definition. Hey, you know how beauty exists by definition? No, I don't know that. Can you give me an example that would show that? Yes, I will go from this definition that you weren't on board with yet, and I will talk about it functioning. Oh, you know how people who experience divine luminosity as their soul separates from their body, they talk about it as the most beautiful experience and existing. And a remembering of something they've already had. If there are, oh yes, I know what you mean now. Now I'm on board. Now I can agree with you that beauty exists. Now we can use that conclusion and go to the next step in our reasoning. Notice when people are blocked, they will forget, they will reject their conclusions and not build on them. But now I'm with you. Now, that demonstration or example might not be sufficient. Now you'll have to break down into its divisions, the steps of the argument that would lead to the conclusion that beauty must necessarily exist. If it is, or equally, you could lead someone through the divisions of the absurdity or the contradictions or harm that follows if it does not exist. That would also justify the existence of beauty. And then from that reasoning, you come to your conclusion. You take this, whichever line you took, the positive or the negative, and therefore you come to the synthesis. Yes, it must exist. Then you take that synthesis back to the subject, other back to self, self to self, self to other to other, other back to self. Therefore, this conclusion we take back to the definition. Yes, I'm on board. Beauty exists. What's the next step of our conversation? That's, of course, a brief overview. As you practice it, you'll see more. You'll develop your own way of doing it. But notice too, what we're seeing here when people are triggered is a similar meditation on an idea. Why is it called meditation? Well, sustained concentration is meditation. When you sustain meditation, sustained focus, open, curious state of mind, all of your attention, ideally, something significant, so you can pour in your psychic energy. Then you can join with your object of meditation, contemplation. So concentration leads to meditation, leads to contemplation. What are we seeing? We're seeing that our B state of mind, when people are triggered by a dialogue, it's following the same steps. We have the positive, what they are doing, and negative divisions in that division stage that follow steps of reasoning. Only when people are triggered, they oppose the steps of reasoning, the dialectical method, questions and answers, using their conclusions, all that kind of thing. And what they are doing is its opposite. Talking for someone, justifying your beliefs you already have, being a dick, talking about your team, your family group, your clan identity. And as a result, it leads to a conclusion. So what can we conclude? We can conclude that when people are triggered and stay in that triggered state of mind, they are using their lifetime and energy, the opportunity they have by living through time, they are using that to contemplate their pathologos. Because the first cause, the definition that causes their negative state of mind, they experience. So remember, the definition you don't experience, the demonstration you experience. Your false idea of self that you carry demonstrates itself. You feel it in your state of mind. It functions division in this, an opposition to the logos and dialectic, reason, understanding, and a use of debate bro bullshit, beliefs, lying, getting pissy, us versus them. And the conclusion is other back to self. The conclusion is division and conflict that you take back to the self, making that original idea of yourself a self-fulfilling prophecy. Therefore, my idea of myself was true after all. I am always fighting against non-Jews or non-Christians or whatever. That's who I am. A self-fulfilling prophecy. And also a self-confirming bias. You are doing a negative meditation, a negative contemplation. What we've been learning is it's the specific false idea of the self that we have reincarnated into time specifically to understand, address, and remove. Because as Socrates has been saying, that prevented our higher development and evolution in higher stages of reincarnation, because you're carrying and identifying with an idea of self that's different, incompatible with the higher idea of self. You can't have both. You can't think of yourself as rubbish and know yourself as beauty. You can't have both. Therefore, that's the reason why we're alive. To address this, if that's the reason why we're alive, then talking with people when they are in their triggered state does the exact opposite, harms them. Debate harms people because they are further entrenching themselves in the very false idea of self. They are further meditating on that idea of self that was the cause of their reincarnation into the physical world, Hades, in the first place, and is their purpose to remove. Isn't that fascinating?
They're secretly turned on by it.
And some were turned on.
I would scoop the moon in a cup for you.
And we would scoop the moon in the cup for people who recognize this and see the danger of just debating your own beliefs, talking about your own image, instead of following the logos. So, and we saw all this, so this understanding of B state of mind and its root cause, an unsuspected false idea of the self that you're contemplating in a negative way, causing harm to your soul and in your how you will die and your reincarnation, but also causing division and conflict within the world. Therefore, the cause of human problems, whether they be as above or below, whether they be in your relationships, in society, in our species, on our planet. It's these 4 steps, with the root cause being your pathologos. So pick a politician. Have they gone through philosophical midwifery to find the false idea of self that they got from their mummy and daddy, their religion, their household way of being, their society, and the kind of privilege or conditions they grew up in? Oh, they haven't? What do you know? So they are identifying with an idea of self. By the way, does that politician who's doing those bad things have a certain state of mind that he's always in? or when it's something meaningful that he's talking about? What do you know? Does that politician reject understanding, true principles, the art of the dialectic, asking questions, following reason, seeking truth, defining your terms, learning? Oh, what do you know? They all do. Hey, what does that politician that you are thinking of also take his own personal beliefs as facts? Rush to his own conclusions as though he is making a speech and not asking someone? Does he identify with a team? Does he have a base that's a certain religion that's team identified? Does he always talk about us and them? Does everything that happens in the world or anything he talks about, does he manipulate that or try and use it to justify the beliefs he already has, the goals he already has? What do you know they all do? What do you know? Does that particular politician that you are imagining cause division and conflict within the world, within his own people? See, it works. Now, this is because of the scope of the conversation. We're not talking about a Netanyahu or a Trump or a Putin or a Hitler or a Stalin. We're talking about the best of people. Socrates, talking to someone who has reached a higher stage than any of those idiots, Jesus. That's the as above, this conversation in heaven with Jesus and Socrates, so below with the morons, the numbnuts, the many, the people who we say,
Oh my fuck.
Brain rot.
the people with escalating brain rot.
Like literally suck my dick, dude.
Oh my goodness.
Hey, you can't say that to her. You show her some respect.
I'm sorry. What do you want me to agree?
Do a poggers.
All right.
I'm joy maxing, okay? And if I aura mog you because I'm joy maxing so hard, that just sounds like your cortisol levels are spiking for no reason.
I got aura mogged. So, that's the... So we could probably go through and clean up this division stage to nail down what you oppose and what you do. Oh, and by the way, the result of this negative dialectic that we can recognize without even having to play out the divisions by simply being aware of states of mind. That's why it's so important to judge people's states of mind. You can avoid this conflict. You can avoid this shitty conversation or global catastrophe or world war if we simply look at their state of mind, because that's causal. So when you recognize you might be in this shitty state of mind, you can avoid this. Or if you're trying to push through anyway, anticipate this, but in a way that we can address it, use this as clues to find our false idea of self, our pathologos, or sidestep it to have the conversation we need to have anyway, as Socrates just did with Jesus. Now, as a result of this human B state, blocked state, that conclusion or divisional conflict we saw have 4 different expressions, and the 5th one, of course, is the good one. So the complete rejection of the logos and dialectic in all of its principles, and to introduce instead your pathologos. You are interpreting, you're adding, you're projecting, you're dumping. Every accusation is a confession for B state people. B state playing out their pathologos. They are dumping their pathologos shit. Now, some people just go full on 100%. Some people are affected a little bit by the conversation and offer an alternative. Oh, that's interesting, but what about this? What about my own beliefs? Some try and adapt the logos. Oh, we treat women with respect. Oh yeah, The Bible actually says that, kinda, if you think about it. Adapting the new insight, trying to unify the both. Well, maybe everyone can have any crazy belief and do harm, and we can all live in it. We can all have respect human rights as well. Maybe they can coexist. Bullshit. The logos and pathologos is incommensurate. You cannot have your negative idea of self and the true idea of self. You cannot embrace understanding, which understands the cause of human problems of belief, and allow people's beliefs to justify their position. You can't believe your way into flying a plane, doing surgery. Equally so, we shouldn't allow people to believe their way into positions of spiritual leadership or political leadership, or have wealth in our society, power over others. Obviously you can't, because those beliefs cause harm. That's the whole point. That's side B. Side blocked, side belief, side bullshit, side bombs. And of course, we want to move through that, if we can, to accepting the logos and instead rejecting interpretation. And that also tells us why we read the books we read here. We need to read a text that follows the logos from a master of the logos. Just like you want to do skateboarding, read a book written by a good skateboarder. But that means that if the work is complete and intelligible, reflecting the logos, we don't have to project our pathologos. We don't have to interpret or change it. So if that's the dialectic of side B, what's side A? This is what Socrates, Jesus said, or they both sort of agreed, made their teachings the same. Let me turn my fan up. The root of both of their teachings is the self, Zeus. What we learn through our reading has to be confirmed in our state of mind, Aphrodite. The division, what we do to, we work backwards. What we do to get that state of mind, or what we confirm, is our reading, Apollo. And from our reading, we learn the method, the dialectic, which allows us to take our reading, the other, back to self. The dialectic is the method that we need to reach the self. Zeus, Aphrodite, Apollo, and Hermes, or Apollo, Aphrodite, and Hermes are our method to reach Zeus, or the self. And by the way, what we've just described are the elements of theology that we want to preserve and make clear and use. And that is what is rejected by people in their B state. So this would be A state. A state. And this other one is B state. This is why it's so important to judge the state of mind of the person you're talking to. Are they in a B state? You ever tried to reason with someone in a B state? Does it ever work? Ever? Ever? Does it ever do anything other than cause conflict and division? And further entrench them in their own bullshit? Ha, I was right all along because I triggered you, liberal. Ha ha ha. You didn't trigger me, you made me annoyed because you rejected the principles of reason reflection, you idiot. See, now you're mad. I guess I was right all along. Women are stupid, or thinking is dumb. So we need to recognize the states of mind, or the character of someone, the state of their current state of character. And that's why being a personification of the dialectic, to be like Socrates, to use the dialectic reason in your music making, in your way of being, in the content you create, is so important, because that's an invitation out of B state into A state. Look at the fun we're having here.
Where's the joy?
Where's the whimsy? Where's the childlike wonder, dude?
Look at the joy and whimsy we're having over here. You have to join us. If you're not interested in that state of mind that we're in, now, this is rational. If you're having a problem to joining it, then you can explore it rationally and reasonably. You can explore the ideas. It's not, hey, do what we say because we're having the fun in the good team. No, that's what sadists say. Look at us Jews having all the fun killing the Palestinians. Join the IDF. No, it's not that kind of fun. It's rational. So this has to be, hey, by the way, so long as I'm following the dialectic to seek truth, we can still talk about whether or not we are having fun. It's not about obedience to leader or clan identity. That is a misinterpretation of number 3, adapting. Oh, really? You have to be in that A state to participate? Oh, that's just like you have to be loving of Trump to be an American. No. That's adapting the logos to fit the pathologos. That's important. I was in a time, there was a time in my life once where I was confused about something and they said, just get on board. It's like, no, well, hang on a second. I want to reason through something and understand it. I can't just blindly jump on board. That goes against my character and truth, and any conclusions I have from that rejection of understanding, I won't be able to hold. That's why it's state of mind and functioning. You need both. It's the state of mind and the functioning. Can't have one without the other. Can't have love without logos. You can't have understanding without care. Love and understanding is tragic. But if that person is in that negative state of mind and attached to it, not interested in a good, open, curious state of mind, then because they are already certain about their pathologos beliefs, then if you do relate to them, they will function to oppose the very dialectic that we are participating in over here. They're like, oh, let me call you names instead. No, we're not talking about personal identity. Well, what team are you in? Are you what do you believe in God? What religion are you? No, we're not talking about beliefs. What clan are you in? What kind of Christian are you? No, we're not talking about clan identity. Well, truth doesn't exist. So there. The dialectical, the pattern of reasoning and understanding in reality doesn't exist. There is no paradigm. So there. All they will do is oppose the very things you need to do to find and reach truth. That's why it's so important to judge states of mind of people. It's not just about sharing the art with everyone all the time. You also have to use the art to judge the state of mind. Otherwise, they won't be receptive to it and they will just reject it, further entrenching themselves in their pathologos. That's super important. Now, with all of that in our back pocket, the A and B state, how B blocked people function, how it's the cause of human problems, how A functions, it's the cause of human excellence and the solution to human problems, how the conclusions fit a kind of 4 kinds of interpretation or a rejection of the logos, an introduction of the pathologos, mirroring the map of the actual development of the logos. So we have our 4 states of logos that we climb: opposing mind, identification with our belief. So there's our pathologos here in 4 and 5. We participate in the dialectic third hypothesis to either purify those beliefs in midwifery by addressing that dialectic to find its root cause and remove that root cause, the false idea of the self, or we use third hypothesis understanding to move through this ladder to the second hypothesis peak experience, and through that to the self. Of course, we can expand both of these lists by talking about a set of 4 that oppose. So those that reject mind and self, fifth hypothesis, there is the rejection of that. Ninth hypothesis, nihilism, even that doesn't exist. Or with interpretation, Paul, like over half of the New Testament is Paul, who didn't know Jesus but lied a lot and wanted to make it all about believing him, bro. So he rejects everything Jesus said about understanding and mind. But we have the Gospel of Mark, who rejects Paul. So you can have a rejection of each of those stages, but just taking the first 5, we can put the rejections to the side. By the way, that's the dialectic, remember? We just did that in the division stage. If it is and if it isn't. So when people are in their B state, they reject the dialectic and they do their problem. They do the negative, the opposition, belief, debate, bro.
Debate weirdo.
They become a debate weirdo. So these 5 stages, and of course the ultimate, we want to even go beyond wisdom to the self. The 5 stages of the ladder of the logos, the 5 stages of interpretation, using that along with our understanding of the A and B state, the ideal functioning of the dialectic to reach the self, highest state of minds and our highest functioning. So our perfection of our functioning, third hypothesis. Our perfection of our state of mind, second hypothesis. And the use of the dialectic to perfect our state of self, first hypothesis. There's our triad of self that we're after, all of us, by definition. And that unfolding from self reflects the unfolding of reality. The first cause reflects into the intelligible realm, which causes the physical dimension, giving us what we need to learn the dialectical Hermes to return to self. Belief, or fourth hypothesis, gives us the negative idea of self. That's your pathologos, the definition behind your negative functioning. The negative states of mind, that's here, B state of mind, B state of mind. And our negative functioning, that's an appealing to your own beliefs and clan identity and all that shit, and a rejection of understanding, dialectical method, questions and answers. There's our negative functioning. There's our self-mind functioning, but in its negative sense. What we've been learning in the text is the cause of human problems, or we've just wrote it out on the board, but the cause that we are not, the cause of our conflict is a loyalty. Our savageness, our zombie state of mind is a savage, zombie-like, blind loyalty to this triad of self. Fourth hypothesis, diminished reflection of the first, second, and third. And a fear of this. First hypothesis, self. Second hypothesis, state of mind. And third hypothesis, functioning. Fear of it. Fear your self-freedom. Fear your peak experiences. That's where the devil lives. Fear understanding. Oh, it's too hard. I'm a small being. I'm too old to learn. I can't think differently. What happens if I challenge my family way of being? I won't be a good Jew anymore. I won't be a good Mormon anymore. They'll take away my magic underpants. Gooners.
Gooner.
You gooner. So that's the internal dynamic that keeps us attached to our B state and fearing our A state. That's the root essence of it. Therefore, if we can understand the nature of all human conflicts as this B state dialectic and our excellence, the A state dialectic, four stages of the dialectic, one concluding in a dialectical understanding and recognition of self, our ultimate state, the negative, division and conflict, further entrenching our false images. We have four stages in how our problems function. Four parts of our functioning. Leading to a recognition of our ideal or a well, either way, we're contemplating the three aspects or threesome of self. So doing the dialectic is our proper contemplation, in B state is our negative. That has its two expressions or variations. Or two kinds of meditation or contemplation. The logos or pathologos. And there's one art to rule them all. One art to master, to purify problems, pathologos problems, and perfect our excellence. That, of course, is the dialectic. Four are parts of our functioning, three aspects or threesome of the self, two expressions of that functioning to the threesome conclusion, the logos or dialectic version, A state or B state, and one art to rule them all, the dialectic. 4, 3, 2, 1. So that's a human condition that we have derived from reading the book. Pretty awesome. Pretty neat. Do you think it's neat?
Jester Goon Max.
We are Jester Goon Maxing everyone who hasn't had the privilege of going through this book with us.
You make sense.
We do make sense.
I just want more testosterone to human body ratio, and I'll finally be satisfied.
Oh my god, Emma, you're a gooner.
You can be a gooner.
You can be a gooner. That's fine. So long as you're a gooner who knows 4, 3, 2, 1. Now, super important. 2, recognize our purpose. These 4, the self-logos version. To recognize people in their B state. Also the maps of our interpretation. So we can add a 5. Add a 5. 5 stages of logos. So we'll put a 5 on there, why not? What color? 5. 5 stages. Now it becomes 9 or 10 with its rejections, but 5 stages of logos development. 4th and 5th, human ignorance, belief in opposition or belief in materialism. 4 and 5, wisdom, 2nd and 3rd. And of course, our ultimate is the self, the 1st. Development. 5 stages of logos development, or pathologos interpretation. Interpretation. The 5 stages of logos development is of course the hypotheses. Oh, handwriting, Jed. Hypotheses of Parmenides.
And she spit on him also.
She spit on them?
Gooner bait.
That's Gooner bait.
I'm cute. Like, it's cutie pie.
Dude, suck my dick.
Oh my goodness. Hey, don't fight, you two. The hypotheses of development, or what? That's you. What would you call it? Interpretation, hypotheses, interpretation stages of Bill. Add your name here. Your name. Well, how about Sally? No. Jennifer? No. Nico? No. Whose names? All of the people who have stopped in during the series into my chat have had strange names. Weirdo names from the internet.
I'm going to get you. I'm going to find you.
Find you.
And I'm going to get you.
Because they don't want people to find them and get them. So let's say Tony. The interpretation stages of Tony. I'm assuming your name is Tony. You can change your name for the fame. Because if this is the greatest work of philosophy to date, the hypotheses of Parmenides, the use of this dialectic, our one art to rule them all, to recognize what, if we make use of these 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, to recognize all possible states of development through the logos, if that's the highest work, but it's not complete unless we account for human beings' pathologos causing our rejection of those stages, our interpretation, then you can say the interpretations of Tony are equal and complementary to the highest level of human development so far. Is that worth changing your name for?
Hubba hubba. I just want more testosterone to human body ratio, and I'll finally be satisfied.
Gooners.
It's sad. And I'm sad for you.
It's sad for you. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. 5 stages. That's the map. Now, this is what we're using. Everything we've come to. We've come to this by going through it with Socrates, demonstrating it, doing a dialectic on punishment, doing a dialectic on whether evil can exist within the universe, doing a dialectic on, what is the nature of punishment and how it never ever works, it only does harm. We've done lots of dialectics. We've done many dialectics on why the dialectic is the meaning of life. But we're taking all of these. This is the culmination of everything we've learned so far, including your interpretations stages. Tony. Or Tonette. Can be a girl, I hope. Guna.
Queen of gooning.
Queen of gooning. All of this we're taking to address perhaps one of the most significant ideas. Now, time of recording, there are lots of terrible things happening in the world. Over I think 150 innocent children were just murdered by Israel and America's the people who have claimed rulership over the politics and religions of those countries. There's a genocide. Hundreds of thousands of people being slaughtered by those same people. Now, there's all sorts of things like that happening in the world, but what's common is the thing that's used to justify it, to sell it to the people, is that they are bad people, and the nature of reality is a fight between the good guys and bad guys. And the religions, the Judaism, the Christianity, the Islam, and all of the different weird ones like Mormons' magic underpants, all of them justify, venerate, it's not just your false beliefs, it's God and Satan. They venerate this particular worldview. It's the worldview used to justify punishment. If you make a mistake, it's not because of human ignorance, false beliefs, and functioning, fourth and fifth hypothesis. And therefore, to solve the problem is to address those false beliefs through friendly, supportive, caring, reasoned reflection on the source of your fourth hypothesis pathologos beliefs that cause your fifth hypothesis functioning, so that you can move into your ideal state of mind second and your understanding based functioning. It's not a movement from ignorance down here 4 and 5 to wisdom. No. It's because the devil exists, or bad people exist, or crime and homelessness is because those people just don't want to work hard. They are bad people. Therefore, we can use them for slave labor or torture them in Epstein holiday resorts. Not just Epstein Island. There are dozens or hundreds of these islands where these sadistic fucks are doing this injustice all over the world. How do we allow it? What do they say to those children in those locked rooms? You are a bad child, and I get to torture you because that's the way the world is. It's a force of good versus evil. And I'm either the ones being abused, punished, tortured, imprisoned, forced into slave labor, bombed, genocided, or I'm the one doing it. That's the two options, the bullier or the bullyee. That's the seventh hypothesis worldview that opposes, these are the 4 that opposes. Remember, we've got 5 states, but we can also add the extra 4 that opposes each of those 4. Because that believes there are forces, okay, so let's go through it. 9th hypothesis, nihilism. You're in the physical world, you're at the level of parts, but you are rejecting parts. Whereas 5th hypothesis says we're in the physical world and there are only parts. There's no connection to the divine. There's no mind, body, or divine to soul connection. Materialism, strict dualism is called. There's the physical world, and if there's any mind or self, it has nothing to do with us. God has abandoned us, that kind of crap. 9th hypothesis says there isn't even parts. 4th hypothesis, where we understand the root nature of human problems, pathologos belief. Therefore, understanding our purpose is to move from the 4th to the 3rd. Belief to understanding. Belief is you're in the physical world, but you also accept there's a whole. You can be a part of a whole greater than yourself by being a member within your family tribe, your religious tribe, your political tribe, a member of the billionaire Epstein class. That's the cause of our pathologos. That's why we need midwifery to find the origin scene where we first came to that conclusion. There's something wrong with myself, my mind, my understanding, and I will accept to be a lawyer, a member within this family. Now you're 3, 4, 5 years old. You've just got language. Your survival is dependent on them. That's why those who are still motivated by their pathologos seek to dominate others, have all the money and you've got none of the money, because I can't have my position of knowing or rulership or excellence unless you are stuck under me, like I was stuck under my parents. Perpetual war. Capitalism. Do as I say or you go to hell, says the preacher or minister or imam or rabbi. Locked rooms on Epstein Island. All the same. Fourth hypothesis. So there is a whole, but it's only in the physical world. It's nothing to do with dialectic or mind or reasoning or separating yourself from the body or experiencing the nature of self or recognizing the self. No higher purpose, only rulership over people. Eighth hypothesis is a rejection of that. There might be physical world parts, so it's one step higher than nihilism, ninth, but there's no whole. They're only physical. That's material. That's where true materialism is. We can represent fifth hypothesis with the word materialism because strict dualism, there's no connection between the physical and mind, is a bit clunky. Not many people have heard. It's confusing. People talk about dualism in terms of spirituality and all that stuff, so it's a bit confusing. So generally speaking, Chinese people, generally speaking, fifth hypothesis is materialism, but technically, if we do include these opposites, well, we don't have to. These 5 stages are good enough. But if we want to include the full range with the specifics, the specific versions of our pathologos, fourth hypothesis, then materialism is strictly the 8th. Or also reductionism. All beauty is just chemicals. All happy feelings are just serotonin squirting. All beautiful Rembrandt paintings are just $4 worth of paint on a $10 canvas, nothing more. We're all just billiard balls knocking around in space. Materialism, reductionism, 8. Now we're interested in the 7th. 7th hypothesis is you're in the realm of mind, but you are opposing the logos. You're opposing the fact that there is a way of solving problems through the logos, that our problems are expressions of the pathologos ignorance that we can address with the logos, and our purpose here is to master the logos through the dialectic. And that there is a providential source, there is an intelligence and care to the universe. There's no care, there's no higher purpose, there's no greater providence, there's no greater intelligence. It's just a fight between good and bad. Conflict, division, equal footing, hot and cold, there's no real winner. So this also falls under relativism. Relativism is the idea embraced by the establishment left, so they can be the foot soldiers for the fascists in the right. There is no truth or understanding. There's no understanding that should qualify you to be a politician. And I can do whatever I want. I can do insider trading. I can never fight back against the Nazis. I can further impoverish people for shareholder profit. Because that's just my opinion, bro. And who's to say what's right and wrong? Isn't everything a matter of opinion and perspective? That's 7th hypothesis. All forces are equal and opposite. There's no higher forces, and no higher principle or higher cause or higher purpose. It's a battleground between opposing but equally equal status ideas. Good and evil, Satan and the devil, demons and angels, good and bad, your opinion, my opinion, right and left. Bull fucking shit. There's no way of being of doctors that harm patients. Therefore, there should never, ever, ever, ever be a right-wing political party that seeks to harm their subjects for the personal profit of the elite class or the people who benefit by the conserving the old ways of being. Should never be war, you idiots. That is a manifestation of this seventh hypothesis. And one way of looking at the seventh hypothesis is good and evil. And that's always, always, always used to justify punishment, which is then used to justify violence, theft, slavery, genocide, torture of human beings. Therefore, the most sick false belief in our society, well, definitely up there on the list, is the seventh hypothesis. Venerated or exemplified in good versus evil, devil or Satan versus God. If we can address and use the dialectic to end for good, as we've been saying, the dialectic is always true. If it's true, it's true. Therefore, you can follow these steps of the dialectic anytime with anyone. If we can take everything we've been learning in the last 160 episodes to finish with 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. 5 stages of our development or interpretation. 4 expressions or parts of that, of either of those. 3 aspects of the self. All of those 5, 4, 3 expressed in 2 versions, the logos version of those 5, 4, 3 or the pathologos version of those 5, 4, 3, and one art to unify it together as a single function we are here to do, to set our life around, our society around, our relationships around, our way of being around the dialectic. All of that understanding that we've come to is all of the training of the Jedi. This is the first 6 movies, or what is there? How many Harry Potter movies are there? Let's say there are 6. It's the first 5 movies of Harry Potter to do all the training so he can face Voldemort in the 6th. It's all of the Jedi training of Luke Skywalker so he could face Darth Vader and the Emperor. It's all of the Taijitsu and Ninjitsu and Genjitsu training of Naruto so he could face Madara. It's all of the insert anime that you like here so you could face insert last 3 episodes of that anime here. Or we are fighting the source of evil, Satan. The source of evil, Satan, that's used to justify the death and destruction that sweeps across our planet and species. Not just our species, but when parents punish a child in whatever sick, cruel way they do it. A teacher to a student. A judge to a citizen. A cop to whoever. An ICE member or a Nazi member or a KKK member to a person they don't like. A politician to another country. A religious leader to another race. All of it is justified with this, which can be personified as a god, Satan. 7th hypothesis is Satan, the source of the justification of all of our evil deeds. If we can reason, take everything we've learned, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and use it to address the 7th hypothesis, we are metaphysically or metaphorically and kind of literally defeating Satan, because Satan is only an idea in the minds of men used to justify our injustice towards ourselves and each other. So we're literally defeating Satan, the big boss of evil. Ironically, in a conversation with Jesus, who is the personification of the good guys, of the God that fights Satan. We are talking with this supposed God to show him that his false belief in Satan can't exist, is false, will prevent us from solving problems, will prevent us from putting an end to human suffering, the very suffering that you are taking as the justification for the existence of Satan. So if that's the case, if we are talking about the person who greatest personifies the ideal of God versus Satan, and we are taking them through a dialectic that can end the idea of Satan, of evil, of the seventh hypothesis, what can we say about the book we're reading? If the book has taken you through the hero's journey, you have become the main character. You are Naruto. You've got all the taijutsu, ninjitsu, and genjutsu under your belt now to face Madara. But you have to do it. You have to read it, you have to see the significance of it, and nail it down. The steps of reasoning Socrates goes through will always be true. So wherever you find evil, you can address its cause. What's the cause of human evil or human injustice or cruelty? That's that stage 4, or the 4 of the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Human problems or conclusions, division and conflict, are caused by human functioning. And that human functioning is caused by our human state of mind, particularly B state. That B state of mind is caused by our false idea, our pathologos belief about self and reality that we're identified with. Therefore, wherever you find injustice or evil or suffering or division or conflict, you can use this dialectic as a culmination of your greatest jujitsu, genjutsu, to address its source, to address its cause, to defeat evil. You're the main character in this anime. It's up to you to nail down the hand motions of this mega ninjitsu that is the only ninjitsu powerful enough to end human suffering and conflict in the world. It's up to you. By the way, right before this epic battle, Socrates has said, we can rank based on those 5 stages, or 9 if you want to expand it out, 5 stages of logos and 5 stages of interpretation. We can rank all human beings in the history of human beings. And we've got an example of each of those, except for the best one. The best one isn't mentioned because the best one is you, potentially. But Socrates says, I am not going to confirm it yet. They're not with us in heaven yet, meaning they're still on earth, but also they're yet to be. It's up to the people who are going through this work, which we've just established is an intelligible and complete work that you can therefore read without interpretation. It's a work of the Logos. That's why we read this book. It's up to you to go through it, because the ideal or the non-interpretive way of functioning is that non-interpretive exponents of a living tradition. That's the new philosophers. That's the new age. The new philosophers live their life according to the philosophy, conforming with it. You are an exemplar. So you can also, hey, like music, your way of being, your way of life, or you as an exemplar, encourages people to drop side B that they're attached to, loyal to, their idea of knowing is attached to, and come over and join you. You also add significant elements to it. Why is that deleted? So you continue the Platonic tradition and add significance elements. Oops, not that color. Elements to it. Elements to it. You participate in living dialogues. Therefore, not only is this a fucking masterpiece, because it's given you everything to realize 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and that the end of the book culminates with this use of this to defeat the source of evil, which is ironically the belief in evil, which is seventh hypothesis, which is a rejection of the logos, which the logos being the thing we're actually here to address problems with. Not only is it a masterpiece in that way, but it's a masterpiece because it doesn't do it for you, or rather, it gives you what you need to read and figure it out. But also, these steps you have to master so you can become an exemplar. You can then practice these stages of reasoning through this dialectic, which puts an end to the false belief in good and evil, or evil existing. Therefore, you can yourself participate in that living dialogue, which explores the nature of truth and reality in the highest way. In other words, he is giving you what you need to become the new philosopher, or amongst the new philosophers. So not only is it a masterpiece for what it does, it's a masterpiece for what it allows you to do. Therefore, as we are reading it, our job would be, therefore, to complete this work is see if we can nail down each of the steps in addressing the seventh hypothesis, opposition to the logos, with its false belief, fourth hypothesis, in the existence of seventh hypothesis, a battleground between two equal and opposite forces, good and evil, Satan and the devil, or God and Satan. So let's nail it down. Let's make it our own so we can participate in it, so we can continue the tradition, so we can become an exemplar, so we can have this conversation as much as we can, contributing to humanity, doing what we need to maybe turn humanity around from its inevitable destruction or inevitable finishing, ending, extinction. Many species have gone extinct. Humans seem to be next on the chopping block, potentially, or at least benefit ourselves and our friends as much as we can in what time we have here. We can do our jobs. And by the way, doing your intended functioning at all times puts you into that state of mind we call justice. That's also one of the things we've gone through up to this, so far in the text leading up to this. Them's the stakes, people. So, if this book does all that, holy fuck beans. Seriously, what other book? Of all of the books that have been requested by people who come in for 5 minutes and say, hey, you should stop doing that. You should read Aristotle. You should read this guy. You should read this guy. Do any of those books come close to fulfilling all of those conditions? And doing so in a way where you don't have to be a goddamn brainiac, academic, dusty, boring idiot to be able to read. You tried to read Kant, it's impossible. It's crazy stupid. Big words, complicated, stupid reasoning, inarticulately expressed. God damn it. This one, it's just two bros hanging out in heaven, having a fantastic chat. And everything they say is set, everything they've been saying is relatable and using ideas we're familiar with. That's the thing. That's the dialectic. It's for everyone. Those that say otherwise are in their pathologos problem to say, oh no, you have to have a PhD before you can determine what is good and bad or what is true and false. Bullshit, it's for everyone. We're all alive, aren't we? It's all of our purpose. So, them's the stakes. Can we defeat Satan? by nailing down the steps of this reasoning, taking everything that we've learned up until now, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and applying it in the most significant way. And in a way that should apply to anyone, anytime, any galaxy, any dimension, any multiverse that you find yourself in. Therefore, kind of learning that we must be here to be nailing down and nurturing into our soul as the meaning of life. So it fits that category of the meaning of life kind of things worth doing. Sound fun? Let's jump in. Jumping in, jumping back. I got my coffee. My laundry is hanging out. Let's see if we can nail down the stages of the dialectic so we can make it our own. Now that we can use what we've been seeing in the maps to understand the context of this dialogue and why our author might have put it at the end of this masterpiece. So here is where Jesus gets triggered, does all the insults, not insults, personal beliefs, appeal to clan identity, declaring we will always be in conflict or division. Socrates' response is to say, not yes and, but no this. No, this is the case. The case is, the key idea we need to explore is the difference in our definition of the word God. By the way, there is a highest source that we call God, and then there is the paradigm or map. The logos, there's a model. So there's a highest divine source, and then there's a model for creation of the universe. That's the logos. The model, the paradigm, the map. It is eternal and unchanging. It has a vitality. So this map is existing. It has its own selfhood, mode of being, unchangingly. Each of these unchanging features, so the unchanging features within mind itself, together as a whole we call the logos. So the logos of mind, or the logos of luminosity. You can personify these since they all have a mode of being. Them's be the gods. So God the creator, so the aspect of intelligence that uses the itself or the paradigm to create, we can call the creator God, sometimes called the demiurgos if you fancy.
Disgusting. I'm so disgusted.
But we don't have to be fancy if it disgusts you.
I'm too pure.
Because we're too pure. Logos is used as a paradigm or model, as we say. If it has a mode of being, it exists eternally, it must have a cause. So these are the two principles that we've been using to, go from the peak experience, second hypothesis, to its cause, the first. But in principle, these two principles can be used for any movement, whatever stage of development you are on within the logos of the hypes of Parmenides. Any stage you're at, you can reflect on how it must have its cause. And we can wonder about that cause by using the principle as above, so below. The principle of likeness. For instance, we can learn about the introduction of the pathologos by seeing how it is in physical appearance like beauty. Our parental figures who we and believed in childhood. Likeness. Not exactly the same and like are different. That's the use of analogy. So, the cause of the logos we call Chronos. By that same reasoning, even Chronos is a stage. it must have a cause we call Uranos. These be what we call the gods, and they can be personified and celebrated. The ultimate cause of all that we say is... Oh, my goodness. The ultimate cause of all we say is the one or the good. So that would be... Well, we've been saying that Uranus personifies the one or the good. But that's not necessarily so, because he said that Kronos has a cause, and the ultimate cause is the one or good. So the Kronos could, Uranus could apply to the one or the good, or there might be a stage even beyond that, which might allow for us to have, well, let's not go into reviewing any additions we can make to the hypotheses just yet. We'll save that for later on. The ultimate cause is the one or the good. And well, we suggested, well, hang on a second, if there are two aspects even to the ultimate cause, is there even a stage beyond that? That's a tricky one. So, that's the know this, not yes and, but know this. Know this was the issue, a misunderstanding of what gods are. Personification, analogously through mythology of these principles that have their own existence and force and power and function in that way eternally. If that's the case, what role do the gods play for us as philosophers? We have a need to say that beauty exists. How will you seek beauty if it doesn't exist? How can you seek the One Piece if you don't believe in what Blackbeard said about the One Piece existing? It is real. Those who catch a glimpse of her want to gain a more and full complete vision of her. To do that, by the way, that's called loving wisdom, the understanding and knowing of that beauty. To do so, you need the arts from Apollo. That's why we read.
Cool as a cuke.
Cool as a cuke.
Cool as a cuke.
I'm joy maxing, okay? And if I aura mog you because I'm joy maxing so hard, that just sounds like
all levels are spiking for no reason.
This is me.
Please end kink shaming on your show.
Okay, that's me aura mogging. So you need the arts linked to Apollo, since he represents the powers that perfect and convert those attracted to harmony to reach intellectual truth. Once again, the things that draw us in, harmony of music, or us being an exemplar of philosophy. So, Apollo are the powers that perfect and convert those attracted to harmony to reach intellectual truth, and the light that luminosity resides there. The light of that luminosity that resides there. His symbols are music, since harmony is most readily seen through her inspired creations. Hermes has from the earliest of times been called the supplier of philosophy. So we can see that our dreams and the author and Socrates and this dialogue is supplied to us through the dialectic, but also it's how we elevate ourselves too. Elevating souls akin to him. And unless they include the dialectic in their study, which is the power of the Logos, they will utterly fail to achieve the passage from the brilliant light, of being to the good itself. Thus we can say, in my philosophical journey, says Socrates, I paid heed to Aphrodite, Apollo, and Hermes. Beauty, its glimpse, its experience, our desire to join with it, love. Apollo, our reading for our learning. The culmination of that learning and that desire, Hermes, the dialectic. Beautifully said, says Jesus, but I still wonder if you believe they are gods, or if they represent powers and forces that exist eternally. Yes, that's what they are. The elements of theology, those powers and forces that exist eternally, we make use of in our development. So, oh, by the way, says Jesus, you know how we're supposed to rank all of those kinds of interpreters from our dialogue and name the categories of interpretation? I've had an insight. What's that? Well, all of them, by the way, what we are doing, the positive contemplation we do as humans, is primarily about the self, which is to understand through the logos, the self-logos. So we are seeking the self-logos. Yet we have to also confirm it in our own experience or state of mind. There's our Zeus, self-logos, state of mind, Aphrodite, Usia. That's true, but don't forget that to do so, we need Apollo. We need to read a work that is complete, stands alone, and can exist without any need for interpretation. It must be self-sufficient, complete, and intelligible within itself. It would not need an interpretation beyond its own understanding, our elements of theology. So to see how those elements of theology are playing out within the intelligible work. That's why we read this book. However, if there are any weaknesses in our theology, then that correction would add to its explanation and not be an interpretation. Therefore, what are we seeing? If this was the being triggered B state of Jesus, these 4 stages, Socrates where's my pen? I have a flamingo, but I can't find my pen. Here it is. This is a pen. This is a flamingo. Pen flamingo. Right, so that's the triggered thing we went through today. But Jesus just saying, hang on a second. Both of our teachings are the same in that we are fundamentally talking about the self. Oh, and let me quote the text. And that is to understand that sacred source through the logos. So we want to return to the self through the logos and perceive the self as the source through the logos. So we're after the self logos. And we need a way of confirming that in our own state of mind and experience. We can represent as our state of mind of Aphrodite. To unify with that beauty, or its source, a transcendent beauty of the self-logos. Socrates said we need to read complete intelligible texts, so we can call that a Apollo. And then, of course, he says you won't reach that unless you have Hermes, the dialectic. So there's our dialectic of our purpose. With each of its elements of theology, the 4 gods that we use, or the 3 that we use to reach Zeus. Fun? Which is a reflection of our human beings' problems, which is nothing other than that in its distorted goal. Not the self-logos, but the pathologos. Not our ideal state of mind. Of course, we're recognizing there are kind of 2, the penultimate and ultimate, beauty as the greatest experience, and maybe an even transcendent beauty of the self. But the negative state of mind, the B state, that's important for us to recognize in others, to see whether or not it's worth engaging in them, or what the what will happen if we do in that state. The vision, or what we need to learn, or what the activity thing we have to do, Apollo, or reading these complete intelligible texts without interpretation, that includes our dreams. It's opposite to reject understanding, to reject the dialectic, to reject truth itself, to ignore our conclusions, all that shit, and to instead insist on your beliefs, appeals to authority, appeals to your clan identity, us versus them, that kind of belief stuff. And our conclusion, Hermes, a mastery of the dialectic that we use to reach the self, or division and conflict in its opposite sense. What? So isn't that interesting? I think it's interesting that we can understand all human conflict and our human excellence with just these four stages. And 4 gods. I think it's pretty neat. And then I'm mogging, and then...
The problem is that you can't reason someone out of a position that they didn't reason themselves into.
Yes, that's also true.
Cool as a cuke.
That's me being cool as a cuke.
My head is quite large and filled with secrets.
I spilled my coffee. I deserve that from trying to frame mog myself. Oh my god. I want to get some more coffee. Fuck me. Yeah, I deserve that. I was being a goose. Unpause. Let's jump back in after I did a spill. What were we saying? Oh yeah, I was frame mogging. Like an ass. And about what? What were we happy about? We're happy about something on the board. That we can understand human problems with these 2 sets of 4. Division and conflict, or returning to the self through Hermes. Our movement through those 5 stages of interpretation or logos. Those 4 aspects of the dialectic, either in its logos or pathologos forms. 5 stages of its pathologos interpretation or logos stages. 3 aspects of the self, either again through the logos or pathologos. So dialectic has scope over the logos and pathologos, which has scope over the 3 aspects of the self, mind, and functioning, which manifests as so properly. So the dialectic has scope over the logos and pathologos, ideas of the self, which has scope over the idea of the self or its image, our state of mind, and our functioning, which in that functioning manifests through the contemplation of the dialectic with our interpretation or understanding based definition or self-identity. Our state of mind again, our demonstration or state of mind or being, state of mind or being or way of being. Division, the division was Apollo, or the rejection of the logos for personal interpretation. So that's through our dialectical understanding or interpretations of belief. Which leads to the conclusion either a dialectical return to the source. What would they call it? The divine source? Looking at this here. Passage from the brilliant light of being to the... What do we call the source? Sacred source. Wouldn't that be nice on your hamburger? Having some sacred sauce to sacred source, which is the self logos, so the self and with the logos, or division and conflict. And that has scope over, so these 4 stages in our functioning, or categories in our functioning, has scope over the 5 categories. Which is what? First hypothesis. One self, or the good self. let's just say oneself. We'll pick one. Oneself. Or an interpretation. Let's make the highest the best. So let's say the best kind of interpretation is accept new truth or logos and reject old beliefs. Reject old beliefs or pathologos. This is why it's so good to draw them out yourself, because as you do, you notice connections when you depict them in different kinds of ways. For example, we have seen that there are people like Plato who have reached the second hypothesis, and we can wonder about how come he didn't go all the way to the first. Well, our hypothesis is because he didn't have midwifery to address his pathologos, because we killed his teacher when Plato was still in his 20s, which is too young to have freed yourself from your pathologos. But here we're seeing that kind of play out within our model, because the first hypothesis oneself is at the same kind of level as the highest term within our interpretation model, because you have to completely accept the new truth you're being introduced to. So if you're interpreting, you're not accepting the new truth, but you're interpreting in a way that includes, projects, defends your pathologos old beliefs. But so we're saying in principle, you can't reach the self-logos unless you've completely rejected your old pathologos. You can't have any image of yourself and simultaneously experience the self-logos or reach the self-logos. Isn't that cool? By definition, you can't fulfill your purpose and know the self unless you've also completely removed your pathologos. Isn't that interesting? I think it's interesting. Now, that doesn't mean you can't have a glimpse of it, of course. But that's not the same as returning to it with the logos in your back pocket. Second hypothesis. Brilliant light of pure being. So that's a kind of unity, whole and part, and it's negative within the map or the 5 stages of interpretation, trying to unify the new and old, the old beliefs and the new thing you're being introduced to. Third hypothesis. Now, there's lots we could say about the third. It's understanding, it's the dialectic, it's providence, it's the gap between each moment. It talks about understands the reflection, the functioning from the gap into us in each moment, our thoughts, our fantasies, our daydreams, our night dreams. It's the thing rejected by the idea of good and evil. It's our method. It's the thing that it's our highest functioning in time. There's lots we could say about the There's lots we could say about the third hypothesis. But we can say it's understanding. Dianoia. Or the dialectic. Why not throw dialectic in there? Providence. Okay, we'll keep providence out for now. And within the 5 categories of interpretation, so it's still a kind of work, a kind of activity, but of adapting. Not adapting our life to the logos or the self as the third, but adapting. It's not adapting us to the logos, but adapting. See, this is how you can find the connections and you gain new insight about each of the stages. So we are adapting the new what do we have on the board? Adapting the logos to the pathologos, or adapting the new to the old beliefs. Okay, same thing. Adapting the new to old beliefs or pathologos. Therefore, we should be adapting our pathologos or our life to the logos. That would be what we do in the dialectic, in our midwife talks, in our dialectic talks, in our dream analysis talks. We're attempting to adapt our life to the logos. Number 4. Fourth hypothesis. That's belief. Or in the interpretation, offering alternative beliefs. So yeah, very much the same. Offering alternative beliefs instead of the new. So that's very much the same. Running out of space here on our pyramid. Let's move it over. I've heard of pyramid head, but pyramid of mind? Pyramid mind. Make him in the new Silent Hill game. One color. And that's what's happened. Okay. Drop a sound drop, keep it interesting.
From the ground efforts started with a lot of people that didn't feel like they could do anything about it, but they tried anyways.
Good point. Why is that? Okay, 5th hypothesis. which is materialism. In general, of course, technically it's the 8th, but this works. Materialism or rejection of mind, self, or mind logos, mind or self logos, either logos of mind, logos of self. And the lowest kind of interpretation is a rejection of the new idea, the new, or the logos. So interesting how similar they are, how they overlap. Rejecting of the logos or mind or self. 5th hypothesis, similar to rejecting the new idea or the new logos or the new understanding. 4th hypothesis, the realm of belief. 4th and 5th, the nature of human ignorance and problems. Offering alternative beliefs instead of the new. Well, that's an interesting idea. At least I'm paying attention to it, but here's something better. My old bullshit. 3rd hypothesis. Therefore, we've been talking about our purpose as a species and as individuals, as human beings, is to go from 4th to 3rd. Make this jumpy McJumpy. Understanding is a kind of art or activity that we can do to adapt ourselves to the logos. Interpretation is adapting the logos to suit your old. So adapting your life to move out of your old pathologos beliefs into the logos, to follow the logos and participate in providence, is that jump. Whereas the interpretation version is similar, except what you're adapting is the logos to suit your own beliefs. A new insight? Maybe we shouldn't do capitalism anymore. Ah yes, the Koran actually said it all along. Well, it just proves that Mormon Jesus was the best Jesus. Maybe we should give women rights now. Well, maybe that's what it means to be Mormon, actually. Yes. Often that's you can map societal progress or the survival of religions and all of these old antiquated belief structures is they have to adapt the new insight to the old, otherwise they don't survive and pretend it was there the whole time. But that's the interpretation version of actual adapting yourself to follow the logos. 3rd hypothesis, which a dialectician does as well. We talked about that last time or the time before. That true midwifery is following the logos that unfolds, not and we use the example of the butcher never has to sharpen his knife because he follows the patterns, the sinews of the muscles of the meat that he's cutting. Effortless. Got really dark in here all of a sudden. Now I look too shiny. 2nd hypothesis, that's the ideal peak experience or ideal state of mind. And it's a kind of unity, all of the parts as a whole. Ousia, a unity of the parts together. Mind knowing itself as mind, mind minding mind. In a similar way, we unify the old and the new beliefs when we try and interpret. Hey, can't we have Jewish philosophers and Christian philosophers and Mormon philosophers, magic underpants philosophers? Let's ignore everything about philosophy and everything about the cause of human problems that philosophy can address and solve, being identification with false garbage beliefs. But can't we all live hand in hand? Surely no division and conflict will happen if we venerate our personal beliefs. Well, at least you're trying to keep the new. At least you're doing something. Maybe Sneezius, the guy who did dream analysis and philosophy, but in his work was a bishop or something, lying to the people for we don't know why. The ultimate goal, the first hypothesis, oneself. But as we're saying, self-logos, to return through the logos. Oh, good thing. That's what she said.
Unbelievable sluts these days.
Unbelievable these days. Self-logos.
I have a sickness for the thickness.
We do. That's why they're so unbelievable these days. In a good way.
Honestly, on the real, I say stuff like that because I'm cool.
I thought so on the real. Self-logos. Which actually is very similar to the ideal kind of interpretation that we do, which is non-interpretation. To accept the new truth or logos and reject the old beliefs, pathologos. So whether we are moving through our human responses or our interpretations that we have as humans who still have our beliefs, our pathologos beliefs, or whether we are talking about the development of a human soul through the stages, they both culminate in accepting the logos, the self-logos, and rejecting your beliefs and pathologos. So, 5 stages of interpretation and development that play out within 4 stages of our activity or our contemplation, the life that we live. Begins with an identification with the self, definition, play out through your state of mind, which can be, of course, ideal or negative. That's demonstration, division, how you function, either through the dialectical understanding or in that game of trying to interpret to fit your beliefs. And the conclusion either ends up with a dialectical return to the sacred source, the self-logos, or division and conflict. Internally, beating up yourself, your relationships, you and your baby, maybe I shouldn't say baby, you and your beloved. How you function in other relationships, how our society or city functions, and how our species functions. That's the cause of division and conflict. Those 4 play out in one of these 5 stages. Well, in both. So maybe you're at the stage of belief and you're here with interpretation. And of course, these things are a contemplation on this triad of self, again, positive or negative, the self or the self-image, the state of mind, again, ideal or family-based, and your functioning, again, belief or understanding. Therefore, this triad is representing the logos or the pathologos, and of course, the dialectic is used for the perfection of the logos and the purification of the pathologos. So there's 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 that we can use to map the nature of humans and our problems and their excellence. All right, so that's why we read. Our work is complete, stands alone, doesn't need interpretation. Jesus says, hey, by the way, if a work does need interpretation, it's incomplete and needs something to be added, ignored, or rejected. Our work doesn't need it. So there's our author saying explicitly. No other books can say that. As far as I'm aware, this is the only book that says, by the way, this is a book you should be reading because it meets that criteria of not needing interpretation. I think that some are implied. The midwifery book, perhaps. The Socratic texts, by the way, maybe. And the lowest member of that tribe of interpreters would be introducing their own pathologos to a work. So this plays out also in our reading. The lowest member rejects the logos of the work rejection of the new or logos, and forgot the most important part. And what was it? Introduction. Introduction of their own pathologos. Projection, interpretation. Every accusation is a confession for people in this state of being. Specifically conservatives, capitalists, and religious people, or people in a problem state. Pathologos. Neat. Then we have finished. We have described all the kinds of interpretation and named them. Hooray for us.
I would scoop the moon in a cup for you.
And I will scoop the moon in a cup for all of you who have got this far.
Spit on me.
I won't spit on you though,
Gooners.
because that would make you a gooner.
The more holes, the better.
Stop being a gooner.
Queen of gooning.
You're the queen of gooning.
You have the brain of a child if you think that.
I apologize for saying that. So, we finished our work. We have described all the kinds of interpretation and named them. Oh, I guess we could... Are these names? I guess we got fifth, fourth, third, well, first, second, third, fourth, fifth, I suppose. That's a kind of name. Have we named them? Rejecter of the new, introduction of the old pathologos. Is that a name? Offering alternative, adapting new to old, unifying new and old, accepting the new truth or logos and rejecting the old. Kind of clumsy names, but maybe you can name them. Something for you to do. You're welcome. We share much together, but there is still something that sets us apart. Right, so 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 pyramid of humanity works for both. But what makes them different? And that takes us to the 7th hypothesis, Jesus' belief that human problems are not caused by what we just outlined on the board, but some extra old belief or pathologos he's still carrying. So Jesus is demonstrating. What's he demonstrating?
People don't logic their way into stupid positions.
They stupid their way into stupid positions.
That even though we've logicked our way to this position, that's true forever and for always, he can't have logicked himself into a position that rejects it. He must have stupided himself into that position.
The problem is that you can't reason someone out of a position that they didn't reason themselves into.
Demonstrating the principle that we hear from the Oracle, you can't reason yourself out of that position that you didn't reason yourself into, or that you stupided your way into.
People don't logic their
Way into stupid positions.
They
Stupid their way into stupid positions.
He stupided his way in. Now, I don't mean stupid as in you're stupid for having a stupid problem, but it was an irrational thing. It was a imitation or shapes and colors thing when you were too young to use words effectively. Or it's too dangerous. Or you made that choice as a wee baby. Toddler. I think you need to have language. So, that's what separates him. That's what he's introducing. So even though somebody can understand this map, doesn't mean they've completed the map. So right now, Jesus is demonstrating a rejection of this new and introducing his own pathologos. So he's right down the bottom of interpretation on the map right now. Because we've just saw the nature of problems, human problems, and how to solve them. It's on the board. So it's a little pyramid. It's a fun pyramid. Looks pretty with the colors and the shape. Shapes and colors, but in a good way. There you go.
Oh, very handsome and or pretty.
Thank you. It is handsome and or pretty. What do you think, Emma?
Making ice cream's a good and courageous thing.
Well, unrelated, but also true.
I'm joy maxing, okay? And if I aura mog you because I'm joy maxing so hard, that just sounds like your cortisol levels are
spiking for no reason.
Well, the reason is I tried to joy max and aura. What was it?
I would scoop the moon in a cup for you.
Okay, I can't. Okay.
Everybody should love Jester Goon Maxed.
Yeah, I tried to just a good
I have a
max
sickness for the thickness.
because of my sickness.
I'm
for the
joy
thickness.
maxing, okay? And if I aura mog you because I'm joy maxing so hard, that just sounds like your cortisol levels are spiking for no reason.
I tried to aura mog, but I spilt my coffee everywhere. So that's why.
Oh, very handsome and or pretty.
And that's good to hear as well. So, if this is the map, this is what you need to understand. This lovely pyramid, like a food pyramid, but for the soul, we can recognize understanding it isn't the same as moving through it. Because Jesus still has his problem here. Causing an interpretation or a rejection of this new logos and introduction of his pathologos. Now, what we've been saying is this specific...
What the hell's wrong with you people? You sick freaks.
Yeah, sick freak. What we've been saying is this specific color of old belief or pathologos, the idea that human problems are instead understood by a supernatural sinister force that's just bad and naughty and does bad and naughty things, and there's nothing we can do about it except murder people and use it to justify genocide, enslavement, wealth inequality. In fact, it's the root fundamental idea behind punishment and the justification for human injustice and problems, represented as a supernatural force called the devil, or any iteration of humans are just bad by nature, black people are just bad by nature, all of the racist, religious, capitalist bullshit that is used to justify human atrocities and murder and torture and enslavement and theft can all be boiled down into this seventh hypothesis. So the nature
He's
of...
so far up his own ass.
That's right. The nature of this stage 5 interpretation, rejection of the new to introduce your old pathologos, is perhaps the greatest one that we can use a dialectic to address as human beings. And as we said at the first part of this talk, worth nailing down, worth memorizing, worth going through the steps, worth making it your own, worth using it whenever you are fall into this stage, or whenever you're talking to anyone, or attempting to address the root human cause to the problems that we face individually and collectively. Defeating Satan. So today we're setting the stage, the stakes. You can't decide to leave your moisture farm and become a Jedi unless Obi-Wan Kenobi tells you the stakes. There is Darth Vader and he will destroy the world. The stakes, you have to defeat Voldemort, otherwise Hogwarts will whatever, something, I can't remember. You have to win the Hunger Games, otherwise the rich people will still do capitalism. There has to be stakes for the hero's journey. And this is the great demon, the great dragon, Satan himself. So this is everything we need, this pyramid, the stakes, well, everything we need, which includes the motivation and the stakes. Not just defeating the root cause of human problems in our world, but your own soul. A kind of learning and development that you can take with you in your soul wherever you go, whatever dimension, whatever reincarnation, or whatever lifetime. So, its significance to you, its significance to all conflict and division, its significance to humanity, it's significant to your own natural desire to put an end to injustice and torture and murder and theft in the world to create a better world to live in, save our species even, and our planet. And also everything we need. So it's the preconditions for fighting Satan. So this is like the all of the episodes in the anime leading up to fighting Blackbeard or Madara or Gold Roger. Earlier in the episode I said Blackbeard was the one who said that the One Piece is real, because Socrates said to be a philosopher you have to say that beauty exists. But that's the bad guy. I meant to say Gold Roger. So, hopefully I've got ahead of any bad comments in the YouTube from One Piece fans. So, this is episodes 1 to 5 leading to the final battle. This is what we need to take with us into the final battle to defeat Satan, including the stakes. This is our ninjitsu. That pyramid on the board is our ninjitsu. That's the hand sign that we do when we face Satan. Satan, you think you could defeat me? Let me do this hand sign. And then you're doing this hand sign. So, all of the training arc. And I guess because of all of the spills from my trying to aura mog my coffee, we've run out of time today. But that's what we do next. That's what we will do next time. Worth doing? Fun? Interesting? Worthwhile? I think so.
Jester Goon Max.
Hopefully you are Jester Goon Max.
I think it's awesome.
And you think it's awesome.
Hubba, hubba,
I just want
more
more
testosterone to human body.
body ratio, and I'll finally be satisfied.
Hopefully you are getting satisfied
I'm just asking for some gooner men.
as a
They're
gooner
like a
man.
goon. They're a gooner.
And you've gone from a goon to a gooner.
Gooners.
And you are, I don't know, ready for next time. Hope you're having fun, and I'll see you in the next one.